Okay, we're into the breathing portion of the show. I hope that everybody has gotten their lungs ready for the breathing that's going to occur. I want to get some music going on here. A little music. There we go. There's some drums for us all. I happen to love the hang drums. I don't know if y'all do the hang drums, but it's a big part of my life now. Behind me is the Mount. This is where Edith Wharton lived back in the day in the Berkshires. I see Peanut Butter and Honey is here. Hey, Paige, great to see you. So this is a place where I met this fellow Jeffrey Pierce, who's going to be on the show today. We were actors there at a Shakespeare company. You might have seen this previously on the show because during Paranormal Week, we talked about how in the cupola up there, somebody apparently hung themselves. And there was also a lot of ghost activity, as many of you know. Yes, Edith Wharton's house. This was Edith Wharton's house. We used to perform in there. We performed Shakespeare on the grounds. We had a theater that out there. This is where Jeffrey and I performed Shakespeare. So let's see. There's the Mount. Here's the stage, somewhere here. There it is. That's what the stage looked like. We performed Shakespeare out there in our youth, and it was a super cool place. We'll talk about that today as well. But first, we have to do some breathing. So as you know, on this show, we start with 3 breaths, and we go in through the nose and out through the toes. Okay, so in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. All right, that's a little better. One more, in through the toes. Let's go in through the toes, out through the nose this time. Hold it. Let it go. Yeah, we're just getting started with the show. I've got a couple of things that I want to show you after we breathe. I needed to have some breathing here because I started the show with some, angst, I think. Angst, but the breathing really helps. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. So also on the show today we have, at the very end of the show, we have a thing called Dance Break, where we just dance and we listen to some music, usually a cover song. And today it's going to be provided to us by Acoustic Trench. Acoustic Trench is an acoustic guitar player on YouTube. You'll enjoy that at the end of the show. But first, let's get into a couple things that I want to show you. All right, so Todd Lee, one of our avid listeners and also was a guest on the show, he sent us this picture from Washington State. The hummingbird feeder seems to be covered with snow. And I asked our resident expert, Ganell, are the hummingbirds, I know the hummingbirds can fly around in the rain, and I know that's one of the great things about hummingbirds is that they can fly in the rain where maybe the bugs couldn't, and so they could keep the pollination of the flowers going. And keep the ecosystem going. That's one of the great things about hummingbirds. But apparently also they can handle the snow, although they might go into a torpor, which is when the hummingbird goes into sort of a hibernation state. And sometimes you'll see them hanging upside down in this hibernation state and be like, what the heck is that hummingbird doing? I see Mark Strugnell is here. Holy Mark. Mark's a musician in London. He's doing some great holiday songs on his website, the Anti-Santa, which we played the other night at the Equal Means Equal holiday extravaganza that we had. If you haven't seen that, they're going to repost it for the holidays. Holy. Okay, another thing that I wanted to show you before we get into the interview are these two things. On the left, you'll see there is a cat sleeping amongst dogs. I know it's a little cold for a lot of us out there, so I thought this little cozy thing from nature is amazing. You might enjoy. I think it's it looks like 3 golden retrievers. And then the cat just nestling in there. Yeah, I like to see that. And then, of course, on the right side, there is a red panda, which everybody loves red pandas. And he is startled, and apparently red pandas, when they feel threatened, they do that. It's awfully cute. Maybe they cute them out of attacking them. You're like, hey, I'm gonna eat that red panda. Whoa, he's so cute. I don't think I will after all. I think I'll give him a big hug. All right, so now we're rolling on into the interview here. We've got Jeffrey Pierce. Hopefully, let's see, John Molehill. Music is louder than your voice. Thank you very much for letting me know, because sometimes I never know this stuff. I never know. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. All right, let's get on. That is the worst, when the music is too loud for my voice. Okay, so I appreciate any kind of technical things that you can tell me. I hugely appreciate, because I don't always know how it's coming out. I'm just providing the humor in the hosting. Mark Strignell says he watched the Equal Means Equal extravaganza, watched it with his eldest daughter, which I think was quite apt. I do think that's quite apt, because it was about equal rights for women and getting the Equal Rights Amendment finally in the Constitution. All right, so behind me I have, this is, maybe somebody can guess what this is from. This is a little preview of what we're going to talk about in the show today. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Maybe some of you will guess. That's awesome. We are tidying it up and returning it for Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, we're going to have that super cool event. And let's get into this interview with Jeffrey Pierce. How are you doing? Good to see you. Man. This is Jeffrey Pierce. Jeffrey is an actor and an author and just an all-around great guy, and I'm just so lucky to have you on the show here today. And we're catching up, because I have not spent time with Jeffrey in forever, but we go way, 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 way back, and it's had some interesting coincidences and such.
1995.
Oh my God. We were like before the turn of the century.
Yeah.
We met.
Yeah.
So I met Jeffrey at a place called Shakespeare and Company. I was in
the one and only.
Yes. I was in a house. We were doing Shakespeare out there in the Berkshires of Massachusetts. And I was in a house in Great Barrington, I remember. And Jeffrey came in, and you had been there before, I think. Before I had.
Yeah.
Right? You had done the workshop, I think.
I did the workshop, and I was apprenticing to Tony Simota's in the fight classes.
Yeah.
In the intensive. Okay. And then you stuck around for the summer, right?
Yeah. So you and I were in the summer shows at Shakespeare and Company. So Shakespeare and Company is a world-renowned Shakespeare company that's in the Berkshires of Massachusetts, and they have this kind of legendary workshop that they do, which it's called the Intensive, and you go for like a month on a school campus and just work on your voice and Shakespeare, and just totally committed to that. And they're completely committed to your progress, to the point, like to the nth degree. They're like meet about us like at night. And then in the day, you do all this breathing and work on Shakespeare, and it's an incredible experience. So if anybody can have that experience, yeah. And they also do it for teachers. At least at the time I was there, they had a whole. They would take school teachers. Yeah.
School English teachers from around Massachusetts, around the country,
and math teachers, French teachers, all kinds of teachers. They bring them in, and they just train them how to do Shakespeare. But apparently, it changed their complete way of teaching. A lot of them, they were just, the experience was
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, one of I think that in terms of the international scope of the company, the two training programs, the one in January, the one in June, are highlights. But the real sort of like, I would say the legacy of the company is their fall festival of Shakespeare,
Right.
where they send teachers out in groups of 2 into maybe a dozen high schools. And they work with these kids every day for 3 months. And then at the end of it, they put on this weekend production of 12 different Shakespeare plays that brings all these kids from all over Massachusetts. And I think they probably expanded in New England at this point, where they get to come in and perform their plays for each other. And in terms of the outreach, in terms of the impact on the community, like in every single type of school system in Massachusetts you can imagine, it's incredibly impactful and powerful. Yeah. So I think, and Kevin, my man, Kevin Coleman, the king of that.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh my God. Yeah. All those people, Tina Packer and Dennis Krausnick. I think Dennis is gone now.
Dennis passed away.
Yeah. But really incredible, committed group of people. Kristen Linkletter was there. She was one of the founders of it as well.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot recently about the sort of driving force that propels you in the world in terms of like why people become artists. And I think that their work in the fall festival is what is probably the most compelling thing that an actor could ever experience. An actor and a teacher, like, because you realize that you're having an impact every day directly on people's lives, changing the course of what they might think is possible for them, whether they want to be an actor or whether they're just learning how to communicate, find their own voice and way of communicating in the world. And I look back at that time and the 2 years prior to that, when I was making anywhere between $125 a week and then $250 a week at Shakespeare and Company to teach. And man, that was in many ways the most impactful I've ever felt.
It's so rewarding. Sometimes the lowest paying jobs are the most rewarding.
Oh yeah, that's why they can pay you nothing, because you're just like filled by everything else. They put a roof over your head, say, "Hey, here's a shitty car, and here's some cash," and you are going to be satisfied every day at the end of the day with what you're doing in the world. And I was
working there for a year. I drove this little Subaru around there. And I had to have like 4 other jobs. I worked cleaning toilets at the Butternut Lodge. I worked at serving scones at one of the local inns. I was a trainer at a gym. I had to open this gym at 5 a.m. in the morning, but it was totally worth it. And also, I think one of the things that you learn as an actor, I mean, for me, and I learn it continually through my life, is we start out being an actor. I mean, I don't know. I probably started out being an actor because I saw people on the movie screen and I was like, I want to be like those guys. And maybe my parents paid a lot of attention to this. You know, saw a lot of movies. So, you know, you don't know what the psychological ramifications are of that. It's like, maybe if I stand up on the screen, my parents will love me or whatever it is. Not that my parents didn't love me. They love me dearly. But whatever it is psychologically that you're looking for, you end up turning it, if you're lucky, you end up realizing that you're giving something out to people. And if you can turn your focus on, I need to get this, and turn it to, I need to give this, or I am giving this, then I think that's where art begins. I think so too.
I think it gets confused a lot by money at a certain point. I think that I have continued sort of on the path and found ways to be, you know, I mentioned the sort of the games that I got into games. Like I got into working in games like a decade ago.
Yeah.
Just sort of happened into it. The writing was great. And I was like, well, this looks like a great job to get. And I booked this job, and The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, I play a fun, very cool supporting role in it. But in terms of the global impact and the emotional response and the storytelling that's in that, it's as close to being like satisfied Like, I'm satisfied that I was in something that was done perfectly and is having the dramatic mythological impact that it set out to have. And that's probably the most fulfilled I've felt in the past 20 years in terms of my work.
Yeah.
So, since I was at Shakespeare and Company, and before that at the American Shakespeare Center in
Wow.
Virginia, touring with them. Because you know that you're part of something bigger than yourself, and you know that it is affecting people's lives. I've done a lot of TV and film. I've done a lot of work, and a lot of it's been like good work. But in terms of being a cultural milestone, being in The Last of Us has been that, and has satisfied that sort of like emotional need to be part of something bigger, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that seems to be where a lot of the great storytelling is moving now, into video games. And, I think we're going to go right into this much more immersive situation here now that Oculus and some of these other things are coming out. It seems like you were really smart to get involved in this industry. And I want to find out how you got into that industry, et cetera, from Shakespeare and Company. So I'm going to go dial it way back here, and we're going to get to The Last of Us, because that seems like there's The Last of Us and there's The Last of Us 2, right?
Yeah.
That seems like quite a journey from Shakespeare out in the park to this. And you and I were playing, I think I was playing Romeo, you were playing Pericles. We had these rotating Shakespeare things back then. And then I reconnected with you again at the Beverly Hills Playhouse after that.
Yeah, in California.
In California. So there was Jeff Pierce again. And I just want to say this to you, because I watched your progression from Shakespeare and Company and then again in Los Angeles. And you always astonished me because you were very methodical and very, very committed to what you were doing. And I saw you kind of lift off, come from a place where when I first met you, perhaps we were just some confused kids out there in Massachusetts trying to work with some of the greatest material that was ever written. And then I saw you kind of come into your own and kind of find your voice on that stage at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. And I remember saying, seeing you kind of go for it, because that place it was an incredible place too. That was another incredible place to grow. We had Jeffrey Tambor, we had Richard Lawson, some great teachers. But it was also a place where maybe you worked maybe once a month or even once every 2 months if you kind of sat back.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. You were up on that stage like all the time. He's got another one. He's got another one. And the thing was, they didn't let you just throw shit up on the stage. You had to really work on it and put it up there. And I remember Jeffrey Tambor used to say, when you do your scene, I want you to back a truck up with all the props and all the set, and I want as if you could shoot the scene. And you just kept coming up with some great stuff, just one after another after another. You were like on a different level. And,
well, I couldn't live without it at the time. It was the first. I had been working steadily, nonstop in theater in DC, and then 2 years it was at that time called the Shenandoah Shakespeare, and then they became the American Shakespeare Center. They built a theater. It's in Virginia. I spent 2 years touring the U.S. and Canada with them, like 2 years straight, 6 plays, 3 a year in rep, and then went to Shakespeare and Company straight from there. And got hired out of that to play Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, and then spent my first summer seat. And then I think I met you in June, and then stayed for the summer then, and then came back again for the next spring and summer program. So when I got to Los Angeles, I was like, I was a junkie. I needed to act. I needed to be on a stage. I didn't know how to find a focal point for my life without that. And so I was really grateful to have that place to be able to force the issue and be able to figure out how to work in front of a camera, which was something that is a very different art form and required a lot of tools that I didn't need to be good on stage.
Yeah.
And so it really, I remember seeing a friend, Travis Fine, do, it was what was the name of that exercise? Where you get to, that a crisis occurs.
Yes.
Like
yes.
you're living your life and a crisis occurs, and you get a phone call and it's a crisis and you deal with it, and then you try to go on with your life.
Yeah.
And I remember watching him do his crisis and thinking, I know how to do some things. I don't fucking know how to do that.
Travis Fine is a unique individual. He was a working actor and decided that he'd go and be a pilot. And then he went and became an actual full-on professional pilot, and then came back to the industry, and he directed things like Any Day Now, which you were in, and my wife Kamala was in, and I saw him again in a film festival in the Heartland Film Festival, and he is just he's a force of nature like you are.
He's got an exceptional film that is in the festivals right now and trying to make its way through COVID as well.
Cool.
I wanted to learn how to know how to do stuff that subtle and without, using dialogue and without sort of leaning into the fact that I was, I had Shakespeare to lean on.
Yeah.
And I learned how to do that. But I was like, shit, I'm running late. I'm like 26 and a half years old.
Right.
I'm really old to be starting in Los Angeles.
Ancient.
Yeah, I was driven every day to do that because I just didn't know how I could survive without it.
I remember. So the last time I really hung out with you, we were moving. You helped me move into the house that I live right now. And I don't know if you remember this, but I used to work. Yeah.
Oh shit.
I used to live over behind where the Tower Records was on Sunset. And I asked you to help me move.
I do remember this.
Yeah,
now.
and we moved. Totally. And in fact, we threw a couch out a second-story window at some point because we were so frustrated with this giant couch. We didn't know how to get it down. We couldn't fit it in the elevator, and finally we tossed it out this window. And I think
you were like, was it an apartment building?
It was an apartment building. It was
yes.
It was behind where the old Spago's was on Sunset.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, I think I was like, Jeff, I got $25. Can you help me move? And you were like, okay. And you helped me move to where I live now, currently now, with my wife.
Nice.
And and you at the time had just gotten married to Kirsten, and it seemed sort of spontaneous. And all of a sudden you guys were married, and I moved in with Kamala, and that's where I left you. I think I saw you at like the Y or something like that a few times and stuff. But other than that, we kind of went off on our own trajectories. But being married will do that. Yeah. So, and I remember you were in the movie Simone, and then you had your own show, Charlie Jade. How did that occur?
I did Simone, and that kind of came out of nowhere. I got a phone call started to happen. And I'd gone in to read for Spider-Man, to actually play Spider-Man.
Really?
And had a great audition.
Yeah.
And how did it? No, how did it go? Somebody called Francine Maisler and said, I found your Spider-Man. And I went in and auditioned for her. It was a great audition. And obviously I didn't get it. Yeah. I think it was Peter Golden at CBS called Francine Maisler and told her that. And then I went in and read. And obviously they went with Jake Gyllenhaal, which is to be expected. But maybe 5. And then I went up to, the reason. Okay. Here it is.
Okay.
It's amazing like how it all changed together.
Yeah.
I was cast as John F. Kennedy Jr. in a miniseries. And it was like 2.5 days of work spread out over 5 weeks. And the deal was I had to get myself to Montreal. They would get me a visa, but they weren't going to fly me back and forth. So I stayed at the YMCA in Montreal for 5 weeks, sharing like in a tiny little room with a mattress this thick, and like there's a communal bathroom, and they had a great gym. They had a great pool.
Oh, good.
I'm in Montreal, so
yeah, of course.
So I sat in Montreal for 5 weeks, training at the YMCA and playing John F. Kennedy Jr. For like 3 days out of that total 5 weeks, and totally like paying my own way. Like I would get like a breakfast ham and cheese croissant, and I would split it in two and have it for breakfast and then for lunch, and then I would like have a protein shake for dinner after my second hour of training at the YMCA, and then go to bed on my squeaky little cot and call my wife from the payphone in the lobby, see how she was doing.
Yeah.
But after they saw the dailies, that's when Peter Golden said, I found Spider-Man for you. And I went in and I read for Spider-Man. And then out of the blue, I was going to audition for a guest star on some TV show that never became anything. And I was paged. My pager went off. I was like, pager. I was like, what the hell? And I called my manager. He said, look, you have to go and be in the Valley. You have to be there in 45 minutes. And you're going to go meet with the director, Andrew Niccol, and Catherine Keener, because they're interested in you to play her new husband in a movie with Al Pacino. So I was walking to the audition because it was like a mile away, but I was halfway to the audition. So I turned around and ran home and changed clothes and got a dry shirt and drove to the Valley in my little I had an OK car at that time. I had bought somebody's Jetta. And I parked and I changed the shirt because I'd sweat through the one I was wearing on the drive over there, and I walked to the set, and Andrew Niccol, the AD, went and got him, and they took me to Catherine Keener's trailer, and she and I talked and met, and it was great. And he's like, all right, great. And I was like,
that was it?
Okay, that's it. And I got my car, I was paged halfway home, and they called and offered me the job. So I got to play Catherine Keener's husband in this movie, and the sort of energy of that led to Paramount TV the heads of drama over there wanting to meet with me, and I went and met with them. And the next day, they had me come in and audition for David Milch's brilliant TV show, Big Apple.
Yes. Now that seemed like that was going to be the thing that was going to make you right there, because that was David Milch. It was set in New York, and you had a good role in that, right?
I had a great role in that. Yeah. I was like second on the call sheet.
Yeah.
But alongside Ed O'Neill and Titus Welliver and Glenn
really
Turman.
Interesting show.
Yeah, it was amazing. Michael Madsen, Donnie Wahlberg, Henry Winkler. It was amazing. Yeah. And it was brilliantly written and so edgy at the time.
David Milch, I mean, forget about it. He's so great.
Yeah. And he that's an interesting story in itself. Leslie Moonves, fucking scumbag that he was and is, was the head of CBS at the time. Mm-hmm. Fuck that guy. Fuck him. Fuck him every way. I didn't know the things about him that came out in Me Too, but I knew he was a scumbag.
Yeah.
He was in a corporate cultural battle for control of Paramount Television with a guy named Kerry McCluggage. Whoever had a better bottom line at the end of the year, Redstone was going to give control of Paramount TV and UPN at the time, which was a network. Yeah. So whoever, and Moonves had CBS, but he wanted UPN, which would become the CW over time. They worked out David Milch's contract, so it had, I think, a 7-figure penalty if it didn't stay on the air.
Yeah.
The people responsible for that penalty would be Paramount and not CBS.
Wow.
So CBS canceled it. It affected Paramount's bottom line and gave Moonves gave him leverage to get control of Paramount TV.
God, we don't even know the game that some people are playing. You know what I mean?
I was nuts. This show, like the reviews of Big Apple when it came out, were like, "Oh my God, it's revelatory. It's this is incredible," and it really, really was.
Oh man.
And so what happened was we started shooting in December, and then we got picked up and started shooting episode 2 in January, and they were going to hold us and shoot the whole season and put us on in September.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they put us on with, I think, 2 weeks notice for press. And they started us right before the Super Bowl. And they put us up against West Wing, which at the time was a juggernaut show. They started us off first they put us after Survivor. They were like, we'll premiere you after Survivor. And we had very good ratings. And then the next week after Survivor. And then they bumped us for a week without telling anybody. And then they put us up against the West Wing. And then I think they showed one more episode. And they were like, oh, only 7 million viewers. It's a failure.
Oh my God.
And they canceled the show.
Right there.
Right there. It was insane. Like, and I said some things on set during live takes. I mean, not live takes, but during takes that were going to get seen by people at CBS about Les Moonves. And it certainly affected my future at CBS. But it was we were there. It was a dream gig for me in particular. Mm-hmm. And I don't, especially how it all came out in the wash about him.
Yeah.
I don't regret not having a good, solid relationship with good old fucking Les Moonves. Fuck him.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. I mean, what a scumbag.
Oh God. Incredible.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But then I was able to keep working a lot after that. I did a lot of television. I did a lot of shows.
You got your own show, Charlie Jade.
Yeah, I did. Went to Africa, South Africa for 9 months.
So you shot that in South Africa, really? Now that was kind of a show that was ahead of its time as well, because it was like I'm not even sure if it was seasons, but there were like 20 episodes. 20 episodes?
We did 21 episodes, I think. And it was so far ahead of its time.
And it was a futuristic, like dystopian society. Yeah, it was like watching Blade Runner or something like that. I don't know if it was influenced by that or what, but
it was definitely Blade Runner influenced. I think that, Bob Wertheimer, who conceived of the show and brought the sort of ideas all together, was visionary within it. And I think that no one was ready for sort of a streaming TV model.
Yeah.
What he was doing was like, it's a book. We're telling a book. Mm-hmm. It's a 20-hour book. It's not episodic television. We'll try to structure it as best we can.
And that was definitely at a time where they're like, this is the way you do TV.
That's the way TV is done now.
You have a commercial and you have that. It's very formulaic, and it's really starting to lose a lot of that, or it's not just starting, it's losing a lot of that structure right now that was dictated mainly by commercials.
Yeah, but how are you going to sell it if you're not going to have,
which is the thing that pays for TV, obviously, and that's what originally TV was for, essentially, to sell products.
It sells stuff, yeah.
And
exactly.
So it still is, but now it's not constrained as much by those specific rules of network television, I guess is.
Well, they can make so much more money from a subscriber base than they can from commercials. I read this article with Michael Cohen yesterday, and he's talking about how all of this is a setup for Trump News Network. Like, all Trump really wants is 20 million diehard supporters to pay $4.99 a month.
It's about ratings for him. That's what
it's not about ratings.
Viewership.
It's about getting viewership. So
Yeah.
if you can get these people to pay $4.99 a month, that's $100 million a month. That's $1.2 billion a year for just getting to run his own streaming news network. That's all he wants, because that money will get him out of trouble. Well, for Netflix and for Hulu and for Amazon Prime and all these other places, they're already raking in so much cash. Yeah. It's unbelievable. They're like, well, commercials, schmercials. That's, you don't have to pay for a minute. You know exactly what you're going to make throughout the year.
Well, that's kind of great because, for one thing, it breaks up all the kind of constraints. So it gives people a much more loose framework in which to work. Obviously it has to be something that people are compelled by, but that's why we do this kind of thing, is to tell stories and get people compelled and get people engaged in them. So the focus is more on that than it is on like, where can I cut to commercial and how am I going to sell this product? I think it seems like a good thing, right? I
think it's a very good thing. I think the stories you tell define your culture and your society and your moral ethos. And as long as you're bounded by the need to sell dish detergent through the course of your storytelling, you're defining your society in a very interesting way, because it's all around, how do we market this shit? How do we get people to go buy our product? Yeah. Whereas if you are saying, okay, we're going to get you addicted to our storytelling, we're going to get you to come consume story, and we're not going to try to sell you anything but the stories that we tell. I think it's a much cleaner
puts the focus
exchange
it's much less indirect, I guess. I'm trying to get you to this dishwashing liquid by showing you this show. Instead, I'm trying to show you this show and have you buy that as a product. Yeah, clearly it's a hybrid of the two right now, because like you can subscribe to Hulu and you can get a subscriber model where you get commercials and one where you don't.
Or you pay more for it. It took a moment, because I try to save money where I can. I'm like, no, fuck this. I'm not watching these commercials.
I know.
I just want to watch Fargo. I don't want to watch the commercials.
Exactly.
But then you can take risks in your storytelling, and as long as people are still showing up to watch, the executives are not going to get in the way with it. Yeah. Executives are a tough class. There are some great executives, but there's some who don't know a damn thing about a damn thing. Mm-hmm. And they are not quite vetted for. They're not hired to, they're not quite qualified to do the job that they're supposed to be doing, which is to be saying, okay, we're going to decide what stories merit being heard and influencing the culture and lives of the world. Yeah, that's not what they go in and interview about.
Yeah, that's the thing about, like that story you told about Les Moonves. It's like, it's a different game that he was playing. Obviously he was playing some horrible games, but it was a different game that he was playing. He was moving pieces around on a chessboard. He wasn't going, how can this show be the greatest story ever told? Or how can this be an epic drama series? He was just going, how can I get leverage over this other person? So when your show is canceled, or when it's preempted or whatever it is, you're like, what's going on here? Why is this happening? It's like somebody's trying to sabotage me, or sabotage us.
And he was. And what's weird is that motherfucker was an actor.
He was. Well, that might be part of it. There's so many. So many people that struggled with being an actor and finally decided, I'm going to have to do something else. And
he obviously wanted to be an actor for things that were not, whatever he was looking to satisfy.
Who knows what?
Acting was never going to do that.
People have different motivations as well. People have different motivations. One of the things about you, Jeffrey, that when I thought of you today, I thought of the word stoicism. And I just wonder about that, because you've always been a kind of person that seems sort of, and I don't know a lot about stoicism. I've read some things, and I'm also some of my I don't know, influences are stoic people like Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seahawks. He's one of my, kind of people that I look up to and think, oh, how does he get his head right? And he's into Stoicism, from what I understand. And is that something that you explore actively, or is it just, am I just?
Well, it's not something that I had looked at until really recently.
Yeah.
My friend Troy Baker, who's plays my older brother. He's younger than me. Plays my older brother in The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Phenomenal actor. I mean, just amazing talent, and a really the kind of mind that's constantly reaching for new information, looking for new stuff. Had been reading Marcus Aurelius, and he mentioned to me, he said, look, there's a really cool sort of companion piece to Meditations, which is by this guy, Donald Robertson, called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor.
Yeah.
Let's see. And it's really interesting. And he recommended it to me because he's like, I think you think this way. I think you spend,
that's what I think too. I think you kind of naturally think that way. And maybe this would be something that you would jive with. I don't know.
I don't know if it's a sort of, I think that how best to explain it? It's not feeling.
No, it's not feeling. And it's not, there's something about not getting too high or too low. You know what I mean? Like if something great happens, you don't like lose your mind. Wah! And if something terrible happens, you don't lose your mind. Oh, you know what I mean? You're like a kind of even keel, and you're also not letting this is what I get out of it. You're not letting the external world kind of move you about. You're kind of, you have a stasis or a stability within you that regardless of what's happening in the world, you are kind of handling it. And you know what I mean?
It's there's an interesting quote from Seneca, who was one of the original Stoics, who says to the effect of, why would I compound my sorrow by feeling sorry for my sorrow?
Right.
It's a really interesting sort of like that's depression. That's sort of like when something is overwhelming to you, if you externally put a judgment on it on top of how it's impacting you, then you're just digging this hole that can be.
That's what I would do with my acting when I was younger. I would get so nervous about an audition. Like if I had a big audition, I'd be going in there and I'd get nervous, and then I'd start to shake or whatever, or sweat or whatever. But then I'd get nervous about my nervous.
Is that how
you know what I mean?
People respond. Oh yeah.
And then it spirals out. And then I'm not in control. Then I'm out of my body. Yeah. My mind leaves. I'm just like an animal in my lizard brain that is going, let's get the hell out of here. Like, fight or flight. And so then I'm not present in the room. And I think that's where I had a real problem early on in Hollywood because of that. But I think that this is kind of gets to what you're talking about.
Well, the sort of, from the time that I quit smoking in 1997, maybe it was 96, and the sort of journey to kicking that, because I had smoked since I was 13 years old. It was really tough to kick. Like that first month was brutal, and
I had to quit smoking too. It was tough, man.
It's insane making. I mean, like voices in your head that sound like they're your voice. It was crazy. But I used running in Griffith Park, and I'd never run a day in my life.
Really?
I had maybe run from the police when I was 14 years old. Maybe the last time I had run full speed.
Yeah.
And wiffle ball, softball, Shakespeare and Company. Yeah. That's not running very far.
No.
So I decided that I would. The first day I quit smoking, I was like, I got put on some Adidas. I was like, I'm gonna go running. I ran out the door of my apartment, my studio apartment on Cloverdale. I crossed 3rd Street. I got halfway up the block, and I had sprained both of my ankles.
What?
So I bought some better shoes.
I guess so.
And I started going to Griffith Park.
Yeah.
I got shin split, running. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So I started going to Griffith Park, and I found this path across from the amphitheater, and I would run up those hills until I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And then I would run another 50 steps, and then I would turn around and go back to the car. And that was my process for quitting smoking. And I got absolutely addicted to running in those hills to the point where I could bomb down them like I was skiing moguls.
Wow.
On a in an Olympic race.
Yeah.
And up them like with a, and did so much damage to my body doing that. But I was compelled to do that. It filled that void for me. And it taught me that the pain was always something that you could subvert to your will, that you could take the information, and unless you were injured, the pain of training like that was something that you could just manage and control, and you could breathe and you could just acknowledge it's there, but I don't give a fuck. I'm going to get to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it became, I think, a model for the way that I started to approach things just in general in the world. And then really interesting to read in this book about how the Stoics, they would give themselves sort of physical challenges in order to put their philosophy into practice. To be able to say, I am preparing myself for any pain or suffering that I might face, and I'm preparing myself by confronting it in ways that I control. And in many ways, Stoicism is the godfather to all modern therapy, in terms of these people were trying to, in like 176 AD and before, they were trying to figure out how to live their lives and manage the suffering of life in a way that would not destroy them. Mm-hmm. And I find the parallels between that in Taoism and Buddhism really interesting, in that they all would have developed completely separately.
Yeah.
And Bushido, I mean, sort of like the idea of like the samurai warrior envisioning their death, so that when they're on the battlefield confronted by it, they can either meet their death with calm, or they can fight well enough because they're present and in the moment, not to die.
Yeah.
And I really have always admired that, but I've never sort of understood, like the sort of connection between that and the sort of Stoic ideals of, look, you're going to experience things in life. Yeah. You run into a wild animal, your first instinct is as an animal to respond. But then your next responsibility as a wise and virtuous being is to control your response, not stifle it. Just say, I see this wild animal and I am content that it's there and I'm here, and that's all it is. And I'm not going to make a value judgment on whether or not this is the end of the world or if this just is what it is.
Yeah.
And I find that I can hold on to my sanity when I'm able to see the world in that way.
Yes. And it's a practice, seeing that in that way, because sometimes we experience that, and sometimes we experience our, like, oh my God, I gotta run. There's a tiger chasing me. And sometimes we freak out, but then one of the great things about being a human being is you can kind of adjust how you're reacting to things and go, wait, maybe I can react to that in a different way. And I'm not sure animals do that. Animals react.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see in dogs, they get that first reaction, but they're able to, when engaged in it, they're able to contain that. It's an interesting sort of
that is interesting
shift to that. But in the wild, I think those responses can be necessary. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics were reaching for was the idea that it's pretty cool. The idea that your only purpose in life is to live it with wisdom and virtue. Mm-hmm. And if you can't do those things, then you're not a successful human being. Mm-hmm. And I really like the idea that they sort of espouse that beats the shit out of religion for me, in that they're saying, like, this is not external. You're not trying to do something to please the gods. You're not trying to do something to please anybody else. You're trying to manage your experience of the world in a way that provides light for other people so they can follow that. So you put it into active practice. If you meet an asshole in the street, he's there for a reason. He's there to test your virtue.
Les Moonves is there to teach you.
Exactly. Les Moonves. My ability to calmly not go into his office as Michael Madsen suggested with baseball bats. Our ability to not do that means that we showed great wisdom and virtue in dealing with an absolute, someone who's trying, they said, like, they're there to try your patience because they're trying your patience. Do you have the patience? Can you
see how you measure up
to make sure it works? And if it doesn't, figure out how to make your patience work better.
Wow.
So it really is like a self-help sort of experience where you're just saying, okay, I'm managing these things as they come in. I'm not going to value judge, the money in my bank account or, the sort of the person tailgating me. I'm not going to put a value judgment on it because it doesn't have a positive or negative unless I choose to give it that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
One of my favorite Shakespeare quotes is from Hamlet, and it's interesting that Shakespeare, one of the few pieces of writing that he definitely would have had access to would have been the Meditations. And he has Hamlet say, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yes.
Which I remember reading that,
great.
In 1993 or 1994 and being like, holy shit, that's so true.
Yeah, but it really resonates now, like later on in life too. You're like, wow, that has continued to be true. I want to segue now because I want to make sure we talk about your work as an actor in video games because you're kind of an iconic character. This is okay. I'm going to just move to this. We're going to take a look at this. Okay, there you are. And it looks like you too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so the technology is amazing.
I am just blown away by this.
We gotta get our boys out of here. Oh, we can still make it.
Josh Duhamel.
You have to retreat. No, we ain't leaving you here. You get me up, I'll hold them off. You have to go. Go! It was an honor. No sacrifice too great. Go. Fall back! Sergeant! Move! Move! Fall back! Fall back! Go!
This is the famous shot. There you are, Dad. Wow.
Yeah, it would kill my mom.
That was so okay. So I would love to know,
sir,
how that works.
Thought you might.
How you shot this video game. So this is my understanding of it, and I love video games. I try and stay away from them because I kind of have a tendency just to get sucked in.
Oh yeah.
My brother turned me on to World of Warcraft years ago when it came out, and I lost myself for a couple of years, and I was like, had to wean myself off. It was like quitting smoking. So I haven't played Call of Duty, but I look at this and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. I would love to know, first of all, how you shoot a scene like that and what the experience is as an actor.
I love games. I mean, look, I love working in television. I got to do Castle Rock a couple years ago and work with Sissy Spacek, and like those are indelible moments.
That is a great. Yeah, you do great work in that show. You really.
It was such a joy to be on that set and be a part of that world. But if I had to choose, like, only to be able to do one type of acting for the rest of my career, it would be games.
Really?
Wow. And it's for a handful of reasons. One, I think you're right. I think the reason The Last of Us we were shooting that, and in the first 20 minutes, the lead character loses his daughter, my brother. And we were shooting that scene, and we're all in these black skin-tight suits with, reflective dots and dots all over our faces. And it was the most moving piece of acting I had experienced since Pericles.
Really?
Really? It was because it was totally alive, and it was it was a great scene, and it was powerful, and
that's the way the game starts, right? It starts with that
first
scene.
20,
that's the cinematic in the beginning of the beginning of the movie that sort of launches. I mean, in the beginning of the game that launches the game.
It launches the journey for
as it were.
For the character. Yeah. Yes, it changes the shape of everybody's lives. And we finished shooting that scene, and I looked around the soundstage, and everyone, the cameramen, the techs, everyone was gulping back tears. I mean, it was like a powerful acting moment, as powerful an acting moment as I could recall experiencing. And the beauty of it is you're not, all right, let's shoot the wide and then we'll get into coverage and then we're going to turn around. It's every single take. Everyone on that stage has to be completely invested in the moment and in the experience, because they have to use that one take to get everybody's coverage, because they're shooting with, 100 cameras on rafters around the room.
They're shooting. They've got all these cameras around the room, and there's no close-ups or anything. It's just
because they're getting so much information from all of those cameras. They've got everything that they need.
Okay.
And they've got the dots on the faces, which engage, like they capture all your emotion. And then later, these guys and women and just the most talented people I can imagine spend thousands of hours bringing it all back to life.
So basically, they're shooting you from all different angles at the same time.
Yeah. They're
so that they can move around in the scene and see different.
They can
angles.
move around in real time while they're shooting
in real time. Wow.
And see everything. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's really a pure acting experience because you're working with your imagination and the other actors. You're not worried about where the camera is. You're not worried about props. You have the props that you need. You have a heavy gun, so you don't have to act the weight of the gun. You have little bits and pieces that you can use, but you're dealing with like gray blocks, and it's very much like being a kid just playing with abandon. Call of Duty was an incredible experience because it had been years, probably since high school, since I had been like around a gang of dudes.
right.
And we went to work and we took such good care of each other and had so much fun playing World War II together, that it was just like going to work on that was like the coolest 2.5 years. Like once a month we'd come in and shoot for 4 or 5 days, and then I'd pop back to Atlanta. But it was just a ball. Wow. And I had wanted, I built my whole, do you know about Band of Brothers, my story?
Yeah, I want to hear that because that's one of the things that kind of started you off in your career, but I don't want to interrupt the flow of this. Well, but you basically wanted to be on Band of Brothers, wanted to be in the movie Band of Brothers, and you pursued a particular role, right?
Well, I remember in, let's see, what year would it have been? Maybe it was New Year's Eve of January of '97, I want to say. I remember seeing in Variety that Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg are doing this miniseries for HBO. It's going to be based on this book by Stephen Ambrose, and it's Band of Brothers, and it's the 101st Airborne. And I was like, that is my fucking casting. Right, like there got to be a dozen parts that I'm right for in there. Mm-hmm. So I got the book and I read it, and I was like, okay, I want to play the sergeant from West Virginia because I grew up in Virginia. That accent, that whole world, that sort of blue collar thing. That's my heritage.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend about how you run from yourself as an actor. Like you lose the accent. You don't want to be, find a way to play.
You run from yourself when you should be going for your.
Yeah, I was like, you should be like diving into who are you?
Yeah.
Who are your ancestors? That's who you should play.
Do you remember Suzanne Huang when she did her stand-up in class. I don't know if you remember this, but
oh yeah, of course.
Remember that? Like she was talking to Richard Lawson, and she's like, "I am so tired of being typecast as an Asian, as a Korean." And he was like, "I want you to come in and do stand-up, and I want you to go as full-on Korean as possible." And I'm telling you, that launched her. Yeah. That launched her stand-up career for one thing, but also it just like totally redefined her for herself.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've spent many years running away from it in some ways, but knowing that the best work that I do is in those worlds and in that sort of vessel. And so I decided the part I wanted. I knew I'd read the book. I knew what I wanted, and then nothing, like radio silence. And I didn't have an agent at the time. The agent that I had was not great. It was, they were not interested in pursuing this or anything.
Yeah.
So someone called me. It was like, "Hey, a breakdown just came out for that thing that you've been saying you want to be in." And they sent it to me, and their character was in there, but there were no sides. There was nothing available.
Mm-hmm.
No material. I was like, well, I guess I could. I'd written a script, and I was like, well, I can write. Maybe I'll just write. Like I had in Griffith Park. I was like, if I write Running Along, if I write a monologue from the beginning of the war, from the middle of the war, and from the end of the war, based on that character that I want to play, and shoot those things, and get that tape to everybody involved, and I'll make a little gift. I'll get like 101st Airborne.
So smart. So smart.
Figures, and I will hand paint all of them and get little boxes for them. But I had no idea how to do any of these things as I was making this plan.
Really?
So I got back to. I was like, well, I've got some of the costume pieces I need from scenes I've done in acting class. Like I was like, I have like an officer's jacket and shirt and tie and chinos. I've got like a chino, like short sleeve shirt from doing, from doing From Here to Eternity. And I can get like a jacket that feels like it's like, just go to the surplus store and get a jacket that feels like it's 101st Airborne combat, which would be like the middle piece. Just sat down on my computer. I wrote 3 monologues based on the book. One from boot camp right before they leave, one from combat in the middle, and one like an interview with a reporter after the war. Mm-hmm. And I called my friend Travis Fine again. He had a business at the time. I didn't have any money. Yeah. But Travis had a business where he would like shoot demo reels for people or shoot things. Uh-huh. And he had bought an XL2 and was doing this as a business, and I had helped out and like operated the boom for him a couple times. I said, I will work the boom for you for free. Can we shoot my monologues at the lunch break for the next thing you're doing? I said, sure. So I memorized the 3 monologues. I got the extra jacket. I went down and I spent the entire night booming for them, and they paused at lunch, and we got 2 takes of each monologue, and then we kept booming until like 4:00 in the morning. And then we wrapped. I met he and Christine, his ex-wife, and she gave me the tapes. Yeah. And I dumped them, edited them together with a friend on her Avid. And yeah. And I had painted the figures, and so I delivered the DVD. No, these were VHS tapes at the time. Yeah. I delivered the VHS tapes to the casting director. Took them to Playtone offices and dropped them off there. Yeah. I sent them to the executive at HBO. Nothing. No one responded.
But still,
what the fuck? Yeah. But then the Anthemopolis, who at the time was the executive at HBO, watched it. Yes. And she called my manager and she said, Holy shit, this is amazing. How did he like these aren't scenes so from the script, but they're so good, and he's so passionate, he's so good. I want to meet him. And he said, well, look, you should read his World War I script.
Yeah, you had that script.
Yeah, that script.
I remember that script. Yeah.
So she read that script, she loved the script. I went in and had a meeting with her, and she's like, and we talked for maybe an hour about writing, and at the end of it she said, look, you can audition for whatever role you want to, and all the script assignments are handed out, but if something comes up, if they need another script, I'll definitely put you forward as a writer for it, because you obviously know how to, write about war. And I left there. I was like, sweet.
Awesome.
Meg Lieberman, who's the casting director, who since has become a supporter and a friend, was not happy that she had been bypassed.
Yeah, you run that risk, huh?
Yeah, it was a big risk. But I had dropped off tapes for all of them too.
But you don't even know that world at that point, like whether somebody's gonna be mad if they're bypassed or whatever. You're just trying to get the role.
I certainly thought it was possible that I was going to get blacklisted by doing all this shit.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the fear, and you just have to.
Oh, totally. I mean, a lot of people will tell you, "Hey, don't do that. You can't do that." And you know what? Any role that I've ever gotten was because I did something like that.
Yeah, it was.
You know what I mean?
But they purposefully put up roadblocks for me. It was really,
really, because you had stepped on their toes, which is understandable.
Yes. So I got the call for the audition at like 6 o'clock at night, and they said you have a 9 a.m. meeting. You're going to be reading for Tom Hanks tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And here are the sides. Good luck.
Wow.
I mean, I could have gone a million different ways with my response to that. And did
this
very
is where
briefly.
This is where the stoicism comes in.
And it was really difficult, like combat material. Like it was not like these are like some really great flowy monologues. It was like it was not material that was like simple and easy and like to latch onto and just go give a performance. Mm-hmm. So I dug into it and memorized all of it and rehearsed the shit out of it. Mm-hmm. And I showed up, at not for my 9 a.m. audition with Tom Hanks. And Meg says to me, she says, I see you didn't wear your costumes. And I was like, this is before I go into the room. I'm like,
oh
what?
Man.
And I just sucked it up because it's like it was a great stoic moment because that could have just flushed me down the toilet.
Yeah.
I said something, very charming about, look, I wouldn't never do that in person for an audition. I was like, that's for a specific reason or purpose.
Yeah.
And so I went in and met Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks was the reader.
He was?
And it was, and he was like in the middle of like losing weight for Survivor.
Oh my God.
Survivor?
No, for Castaway.
What was it?
Castaway.
And he was just, and it was, I was very fucking good.
Yeah.
And I did not get the part. They offered, Donnie Wahlberg got the part.
Donnie Wahlberg.
Did not do it with the West Virginia accent, by the way.
Yeah,
but
not authentic at all.
Shredded, absolutely. He was great. He was actually great in it, but not like West Virginia.
Yeah.
And it was really heartbreaking not to get it.
Yeah, I'm sure after all of that.
But I realized that I had done some guest stars at that point, but I didn't have anything that showed me in the light that those 3 monologues did.
Yeah.
So I called my manager. I said, throw away my, guest star demo reel. If anybody wants to see what I can do, show them that tape, and we'll go from there. That tape got me hired without auditioning to play John F. Kennedy Jr.
Really?
Which led to Paramount, which led
started your whole trajectory.
Yeah, led to Big Apple, started everything. It got me my agent, who's my agent to this day. He sent that tape to Julia Buchwald at Buchwald, and she watched it, and we met. And she's like, look, anybody can do this kind of work and has the courage to do what you did. She's like, don't do that anymore.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's going to create problems.
This got you here, but please don't do that again.
And so when the opportunity came, that when I found out what Call of Duty World War II was going to be, it was like, okay, I get to do
this is my band of brothers. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had to wait extra long for it, but it was worth it. And I got, it's a great death.
It's a great death. It is a great death. I don't know. Did Donnie Wahlberg die? How did he die?
Donnie Wahlberg, yeah, he does not die.
Okay,
but obviously, I remember going up to him. We were shooting the pilot for Big Apple. I was like, Donnie, I really, thought you were great in Band of Brothers. And I thought that must have been like a dream job. He said, it was the fucking worst.
No way.
So I'm sitting in fucking England for 13 months. I can't see my family. And all but one episode, you're basically a fucking extra in the background in green.
Man.
I think I would have enjoyed it more than you did.
You're like, I dodged a bullet there, Donnie. Thanks for taking it for me.
He had a young kid at the time, and he was just like, we're out here in the snow, and like most of the time you can't even tell it's us in the background. So I understood his point of view. Totally. But yeah, I would have.
You would have loved it though. You would have been like there every single day. Yeah.
You know what's better about doing it for a video game?
What?
We were never out in the snow and the rain and like in hair and wardrobe, and like we all had like 8-hour days at the most. Yeah. Like video games rule.
Sitting in, yeah, totally. Oh my God. So what would you say for people out there that are maybe actors that want to get into the video game world? Are there schools now for mocap and this kind of thing, or how does somebody train for that?
I know there's a guy named Bill Beamer. I think that he teaches some classes. He's like the king of sound stages. But the truth is, if you're like, everything that I learned to do at Shakespeare and Company is what I have needed for video games.
Yeah. Because
you are 1000% reliant on your voice and your ability to show up and give a complete head to toe performance.
Yeah.
And I've been able to use everything else that I've ever learned as an actor, but I have never had to focus so much on keeping my instrument really well tuned. Like I could go out today, I'm pretty sure, and give a performance at an amphitheater for 1,000 people and still be heard in the back section. And with the sort of emotional connection attached to it, because you're trying to do more. You're not overacting in video games, but you have to give them clay that they can work with in the when they're redoing the scene and animating it, essentially. They've got all the information about your face, but they really need to feel that emotion come in the same way that theater needs to.
Can't really fake that, I don't think. I don't think you can fake it. That's why they have actors. All right, well, we're going to have to end the interview now. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Jeffrey.
It's good to see your face and hear your voice, man.
Yeah, it's great seeing you. Is there anything that you want to say about like something coming up or any place that you want people, anything that you want people to watch? Or I know that a lot of times what you're working on is like NDAs. Oh, one thing I want to say is you wrote a book. And
I wrote a second book.
You wrote 2 books.
I just finished the second of 5. It's going to be a 5-part series.
Oh and so I have the Audible book of your first one that I'm listening to now. And the writing is quite good. And you narrate it as well. You do the Audible book and you have a British accent. Like what? I mean, it doesn't even sound like you, Jeff. I mean, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. I was amazed by your work on this thing, your writing and your performance. So definitely people should go to that. Go to Audible, get Jeff's books.
Yes.
You have just the one book on Audible right now, right? And there's another one coming.
Yeah, I'm doing the audio. I finished writing book 2. It's coming out in March. And I'm doing the audio book right now, which is just like as exhausting. It's not exhausting to perform it, but engineering it, like doing the sort of editing of it, is a brutal process. I feel sorry for anybody who has ever had to audio engineer my voice, because you get all these pops and clicks and whistles that just like you have to pull that shit out.
Yeah.
It's a terrible experience.
Audio is so difficult to edit. I mean, my God, I have a friend, Ben Gervich, who sometimes helps me out with the audio, and he says, you just got to look at the waveform, and that's where all the clues are. But I have a hard time with it. I have a hard time.
Oh,
you want to get it right the first time. One of the things I always say about filmmaking is you want to get the audio right the first time, because fixing it in post is a nightmare.
Well, it was interesting because I really, in some ways, questioned how I was going to do the audio for the first book.
Yeah.
But I felt like the narrator I'm not the narrator, and the narrator to me had a character.
Yeah.
And a couple people were like, "You're going to do an accent for your audiobook for the narrator?"
I'm totally amazed by it, because
then having to play Germans and women and Australians and Senegalese and Southerners, it's a lot to hold on to.
Yeah.
But I trusted the sort of gut instinct, this is the voice, because the narrator is seeing it from a god's or a devil's point of view, and takes the characters on so many different journeys that it needed to be more than just reportage of what's happening.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is I recorded the entire second book and finished that maybe 6 weeks ago. But I listened to the material and I thought, I'm backing off of the voice. Like I am trying to censor what the impulse is to just fucking go there.
Yeah.
With the accent and with the sort of characterization. So I have been re-recording.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The entire book. And I'm just glad I didn't engineer the entire thing and then have to record it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you feel that impulse that you see the mountain and then you just have to suck it up.
Yeah,
and climb
you gotta climb it. You can't go around it.
Yeah,
can't go around it.
So that's been quite a process, but I love it. It's such a terrible and wonderful experience to get to be the voice of the book and to write a book, But it all ties back into you suck it up, you put your head down, you do the best you can, and you don't judge it as you're doing it. Otherwise, you'll kill yourself.
Exactly. That's what I always say. You got to just do it. You got to put one foot in front of the other and just go, 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 go. You can judge yourself some other time.
Yeah. Or don't.
Never.
Or never. I mean, where you have to make a determination of, is it good enough?
Yes, of course.
Which is what
you did with your first recording, and you were honest with yourself and said, "This is what I want to achieve with this."
Well, I felt like around chapter 36, I really got into the groove. I was like, that sounds right.
That's the way it is.
And then when I look back at chapter 1 and the prologue for book 2 and thought,
wow,
you're being a pussy. You got to go back and dig this again.
Well,
but thank you.
This has been super fun. Well, did I stop you? Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about that was, coming out? Or I know a lot of times you have to sign NDAs and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's all that that's all that's fit to talk about now.
Cool. So much love to your family. And
Thanks,
it's
man.
so great reconnecting with you. And, I hope that we'll work together soon.
Well, I hope if nothing else, hopefully they get the vaccine deployed and we see each other and grab lunch in June or July when I'm back out there.
I would love that. It's
cool,
it's
man.
A date. All right, cool.
Excellent.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Take care, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right. There we go. That was Jeffrey Pierce, which is, obviously a upstanding citizen, a mensch, as it were. The answer to the trivia question about the background of what's behind me, that's from The Last of Us 2 video game that Jeffrey's in. You're welcome, Trish. Good to see Trish King here. She has her own live streaming channel where she plays beautiful music. So that's The Last of Us. And Last of Us they just came out with Last of Us 2, which is a fantastic video game. My brother said the opening sequence was the most moving sequence that he'd seen in video games. It actually moved him, he said. Thanks, Jeffrey, for sharing. Yeah, for being so open. Fuck less Moonves. That was hilarious. So recommend this to all your actor friends, all your non-actor friends, artists and stuff, because I think there's some good nuggets in there. And hopefully hopefully, we can break this down and send it out in smaller chunks as well. Now we're moving to the dance break. We're moving into the dance break, which is going to feature Acoustic Trench. And the reason this is appropriate is because he is playing the theme song to this video game. Apparently the music's great in this thing. I don't know. I mean, I got to find out about this thing because they even play the guitar. The character in the video game plays guitar. I don't know. Somebody's got to explain it to me. But anyway, I'm wishing everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas. What are we going to do on Christmas? Friday is Christmas. I'm going to rerun the Stephen Tobolowsky interview just because I think it's interesting and appropriate and fun. So there will be a live chat room and the Stephen Tobolowsky interview for anybody that wants to spend time with us on Christmas. And now, Jeffrey moved Joel literally. All right, moving into Acoustic Trench. So this is a classical guitar. Thanks everybody for being here. Of course there's an animal in this video. Acoustic Trench allowed us to play this on the show. It is the theme song for The Last of Us. Video games seem to be the place where there's a lot of advancements in entertainment. And the arts. Thanks for being here, Peter Butter and Honey, Paige. Yeah, this guy's phenomenal. There's another guy, great guy, Nathan Mills, who plays this song on YouTube as well. Then we're going to be playing some of his music next week, I believe. Also, next week we're going to have the fantastic Aaron Grooves on here live. Aaron Grooves, another fantastic musician and tap dancer. Yes! This is beautiful, isn't it? Look at that shot. Inside of the guitar.